guys and gals. This is Axel Paxel back with another tutorial. First off, let me just say thank you to all the support that I have been getting in the process of making this model. The feedback I've received on Facebook, Instagram, and on Patreon by my patrons. You guys make this hobby so much more fun to do. And without the support of especially those who support me on Patreon, I wouldn't be able to produce the content that I am producing right now. If you would like to support me, there are free ways to do that. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, which really helps as my videos will rank higher. And there are, of course, paid alternatives as well, but you will get something in return as well. If you were to support me on Patreon, I would give you, if you're in the painting process of a miniature, I would help you personally in that venture by highlighting certain things you can do to the model, which will improve the look of it. I may even make that into a video, which I have done in the past for some of my patrons. I also give out, or I also publish tutorials that are exclusively for my patrons. But most of my content will be free, of course, because I believe that mostly it's for the community, and I believe that everyone benefits by watching tutorials, not just by me, but by everyone. But through Patreon, I'm able to actually produce more content, so it would really mean a lot to me if you were to support me there. So right now I'm going over the I've primed the model black first, I should say that. So it's primed black, and the first thing I did was use some black gray and highlight with the edge of my brush, not the tip, but the edge of my brush. I used that black gray and highlighted, or not highlighted, I put down some base color in some parts of the armor. It's actually very close to black, so it's difficult to see. Right now I applied the next highlight color, which is blue pale gray, or blue gray pale. I can't remember in what order that name is. And when I apply this highlight color, I tend to put down the color, but it doesn't dry immediately. So I lick my brush after I've applied the highlight color, like you can see right now. I'm applying the highlight color, and then I lick my brush, and then I pull paint in the edges of the highlight so that it smoothens the transition with the color underneath it, and that will create very smooth blends when you're doing edge highlighting. So the consistency of the paint is a layer consistency. What this means is that it should be somewhat opaque or see-through when you apply it to your fingernail. You don't want it too runny, because that will take too long. You have to apply like 10 or 20 strokes before you actually see any result. So you're putting down Right now I've created my highest highlight point for the edge highlighting. It's a mix of model color ivory and the blue gray pale. And I'm utilizing the same technique where I put it in the center of the already made highlight from the blue pale gray. Only I pay a smaller portion of the highlight with this strongest highlight color, and then I lick my brush, and what that will do is it will water the paint on the brush down, so that when you apply it next to the model, you will create a smooth transition in the outer edges of the highlight that you just created. Licking my brush there, and then blurring the edges with the watered down paint, watered down by my saliva. So a lot of people don't like to lick their brush. I find it somewhat it makes it easier, because if you were to dip your whole brush in water, too much water would enter the brush, and you would smear paint all over the model. And it's easier to control the amount of moisture that you add to the brush if you lick it. So the way I lick it is I just put the whole brush inside my mouth, and I do like a circular movement around the brush, so that it gently just grazes my mouth when I pull it outside. It's kind of hard to describe, but I could show that, but it's just basically you lick your brush, and yeah, you apply the paint in the transition. So when you're doing edge highlighting like this, it's important that you don't highlight too many spots, because having just a few spots will actually increase the effect. And you also have to be mindful of where the light is hitting the model from. So in my case, the light is coming from over the model, so more light would hit the lines on top of the model. So that's why I've highlighted the edge in that way, in that manner, as you can see. So yeah, it's very important that your edge highlighting or the lines of armor that you want to highlight, it's very important that it has dark spots and it has light spots. This is necessary in order to create contrast between the two. And if there is too little color variation between the dark and the light color, it will not appear shiny at all. So there's actually the black primer underneath. Then I apply some gray, black gray, sorry, some black gray. This is close to black actually in color, so it just adds a little less darkness in some areas. And then the blue pale gray is a highlight color, but it's not the highest highlight color. So you apply this in a smaller surface area, and then next you apply the mixture of blue pale gray and the model color ivory to create the final highlight, and you apply that in an even smaller area. So when I did this armor, you can see that I've hit the sides of the edge of the armor with some yellow color. So I'm just going over that various spots in order to pick out the line itself. When you're doing this work, it's important that you use a brush that does not have split bristles. A lot of my brushes have this, and after a while your brush is likely to end up that way if you don't care for it very properly. Because since you're using the side of your brush, if you have split bristles, then you will leave paint on parts of the model that you don't want paint to be left. So I'm constantly licking my brush in order to smoothen the transition in the edges of the highlight. If you want some parts to be even more highlighted, you can go over the same spot with the same highlight color, and that will create a stronger color because you're building up the layers. I would not use pure ivory for highlighting here. If you were to do that, it would create yes, it would create a really strong contrast, but it would draw your attention away from the armor work that's on the rest of the model, and I don't want to do that. I want to keep the red, the orange, and the yellow like sort of like a main focal point. And if you were to add a really strong contrast by using model color ivory, or even worse than that, some Schmincke titanium white, which is a really white color, your attention would be drawn to those spots, and you would lose interest. This is one of the main reasons that I actually mix my own colors, because I get full control over my saturation of the highlights, how strong they are, and whatnot. So this spot of the armor is actually one of the most highlighted points on the lower parts of the model. And that is because it's slightly protruding, like it's walking, taking one step. So this area would catch more light, so this area needs to be more highlighted than the right leg. Edge highlighting like this is actually kind of satisfying, because it goes really fast. and you can see results pretty quickly. It is important that you build up the layers. However, if you were to go directly to the strongest highlight, you would create a transition that is not smooth. So it would not look good. You need those midtones of, in my case, that's blue pale gray, and the highest highlight point color. So now this part of the armor is starting to come together. I bought some new brushes because I've ruined the bristles on two of my main my main brushes, Winsor and Newton. These new brushes are a completely different brand. They are of course Kolinsky Sable brush brushes, but I'm anxious to test them out and compare them to the quality of the Winsor and Newton ones, which I'm really satisfied with. So it should be interesting to see. These new brushes are from Feldherr. I think it's a German brand. And the reason I chose these brushes is that they are you can get them for a fairly cheap price. They are Kolinsky Sable brushes, but more important than that is that they have a long bristle length, which means that the brush will hold more water, which means that the paint on the tip of your brush is likely to dry out in a longer duration of time. If you were to paint with Winsor & Newton miniature series brushes, they have so small or short bristle hairs that paint tend to dry up. So here I've gone on to test out some colors on the, I don't know what that's called actually. I'm just gonna call it like the curtain shoulder pads hairy thingy. That's a long name though. Yeah, I tested some color variations on that. I didn't want it to overwhelm the model, so the highlight color is not that bright. The color that I'm putting down right now is a dark sea blue, and it's very watered down. It's not a wash, but it's like a I actually think it's like a glaze almost, but I'm applying it very thickly, so it appears a little bit more thick in consistency. The reason I'm using a glaze to put down these details is that it will hit the recesses in the hair thingies that I'm painting right now. So yeah, I'm hitting the recesses, which will mean that most paint will be left in these recesses, and I will be able to pick out the details later with a dry brush. When you do this, just be sure that you wait a long time before you actually apply the dry brush, because a paint of this consistency takes a while to dry, and if you were to apply the dry brush before the paint underneath it has dried, you will get water and paint inside your dry brush, and it will completely ruin the effect. So here I've just mixed the highlight color. It's a mix of dark sea blue and model color turquoise and some white. And for an even brighter look, I've just added more white into that mix and gone over with the dry brush. So it's an easy technique. You don't apply that much pressure when you paint on the model, and you wipe off most of the paint. It's a very fast technique, and at this point I wanted to get this model done. So this is the final result. Just gently tapping the brush in the edges. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching the video. This wouldn't be possible without the support of my patrons, so thank you.